They met on a rainy evening, the kind that washes the city clean and blurs the edges of propriety. He was grading papers long after the final bell. She was waiting for a ride that was never going to arrive. A teacher and a student, two solitary figures in an empty school, drawn together by a current of recognition they couldn't explain and didn't dare to name. The air in the hallway smelled of wet leaves, chalk dust, and the electric hum of a secret about to be born. It was a scent she would remember for the rest of her life. He carried the kind of quiet that only long nights and a carefully guarded heart can teach. A weariness in his eyes that wasn't from fatigue, but from loneliness. She, in turn, carried her questions like lanterns, bright and fearless, determined to illuminate every shadow she found, especially the ones he kept hidden inside himself. It started with a simple offer to share his umbrella. A glance, then a pause that stretched for a lifetime. In that quiet moment, something unspoken moved between them. A shared understanding that this was more than just a chance encounter. This was a beginning. Sometimes the weather tells the truth before we do, and that night, the storm was inside as much as it was out. He was older, wiser, and bound by rules he had long ago promised to uphold. He was also profoundly lonely. She was young, curious, and looking for a truth the world wasn't yet willing to show her. She was looking for something real, and she sensed it in him. Every day, their conversations grew longer, spilling from the classroom into the quiet hours after school. They built a world for two in the margins of the day, and their silences grew deeper, filled with the dangerous weight of unspoken desire. They spoke of books, of weather, of dead poets and distant stars, of everything except the gravitational pull that drew them closer with each passing day. A forbidden warmth crept in like evening light, and they both pretended not to notice the flame. What begins as a moment becomes a habit. What begins as a habit becomes a need. One night after class, the rain had stopped, but the air still shivered with all they hadn't said. The tension was a third person in the room. She stood where the light met the dark, a living metaphor for the choice before them. He kept his distance, a fortress of professionalism crumbling from the inside. He held onto his secrets like a shield.
You're afraid. I'm not. Tell me, if this love is so wrong, why does it feel like the only right thing in the world?
The truth doesn't shout. It trembles. And in her voice, he heard the echo of a question he had asked himself 1,000 times in the lonely dark. Between them, a question that could not be graded, an answer that could not be written down. And somewhere, in the quiet of an empty school, a line was not softly crossed, it was obliterated. But love built in the shadows, on secrets and stolen moments, can never truly survive the light. A rumor, a whisper, a concerned colleague, that's all it took. The night before he left town for good, the world turned colder, the air sharp with the coming frost of goodbye. They met one last time, not as teacher and student, but as two people about to lose everything. The silence pressed between them, no longer kind, but heavy with the ghosts of their future. She gave him a letter filled with all the words they could never say aloud, and a promise to wait, a promise she knew she couldn't keep. Some promises are just prayers in disguise, whispered against the inevitable. He carried her words into the night, a final lesson in heartbreak. Ink runs. Memory does not. It burns. Years passed. The seasons turned. She became a writer, forging a career from the alchemy of pain and longing. Every story she told, every forbidden love she chronicled, was really about him, a ghost haunting every page. But she never used his name, protecting the secret even after all that time. She used only the memory, the ache, the echo of his voice in an empty hallway. Nostalgia is the ache that keeps us warm, the scar that reminds us we were brave enough to feel. She learned to turn longing into language. And across the country, in a life she would never know, he finally read their story. And in the quiet, when the sky opens up, he visits her like rain. A memory, a feeling, a presence. Some stories aren't meant to be told, only lived, and then, perhaps, rewritten. Some loves aren't meant to last forever in the world of days and nights, but they never really die either. They find a new home. They settle into us like weathered pages in a beloved book. And when it rains, we open the cover and we read them again. Goodbye is never the end of the story.